Hey, it's Tpok. I'm back in true Remembrance. This time it looks like we're gonna have dinner with Lips and Jackal. She wiped her feet on the mat. Actually, Jackal came up bounding and imitated his master as well, and came on in. And La, well, she was proving herself to be quite the host, or hostess. She led Lips to a chair, brought her a nice cup of tea, then went back to the kitchen to get dinner done. This left Lips and me alone together in the living room. She looked at me every once in a while. Obviously there was something she wanted to say, but I ignored all that. After the cooking was done and the table was set, we took our seats. Lips looked totally amazed by the multi-course banquet she had been laid out in front of her. That had been laid out in front of her. Oh, wow. You made all of this, huh? I don't think I caught your name. La. No, not at all. Blackiris helped too. No, wait, more like he did everything and I helped him. A few weeks ago, this would have been true. Now it was a lie, though. La had turned herself into an extremely good cook in the meantime. She'd come a long way too. At the very first, it was dangerous to even let her handle a knife, but now she basically ran the kitchen. Good for her. Oh, wow, I'm looking forward to this. I haven't eaten home cooking for such a long time now. Okay, Lips said with a gentle shrug. La just beamed at her. After dinner, we had coffee and the sweets Lips had brought us. Well, actually, I was the only one eating. Lips and La were too busy playing with Jackal to do much of anything else. Lips, you're a Mnemonicide, correct? Oh, yes, of course. Wait, aren't you one as well? She's my guest. I completed the sentence for her as she didn't look like she was going to be able to get it out. Lips turned to look at me for a moment. Obviously, this was surprising to her. I see. You too. Well, you seem to... Well, you see... Well, see, you get along so well that I thought... Mnemonicides have been known to move in together, you know. Oh, no. You know, it was like clockwork these days. Whenever anyone said something like this to La, she invariably blushed, and furiously at that, in a matter of seconds. Have you been one for long? A Mnemonicide, that is. Oh, no, I've just wrapped up my first year of service, actually. I see. Wait, Blackiris, how long have you been one? About 3 years, I think. We talked about this and that until it became very dark out indeed. Lips stood and indicated that she'd better be heading home. Alright, I'll walk you to the station. Lips nodded silently. La piped up, said she wanted to come along too, but I made her stay at home. I expected her to argue, but she looked up at me once, closed her eyes, and nodded. She's still mad at me. We walked along for a while. We said nothing to each other. Lips kept her eyes fixed on Jackal. I kept mine on the road ahead. But when we reached the copse of trees, she began to talk. Dinner was delicious. You'll have to tell La thank you for me. Wait, I came to thank you in the first place, and now... I suppose... Enough small talk. I'd like you to return what you took from me. And what might that be? You know as well as I do. You've been holding on to something of mine ever since we bumped into each other at Aroma today. She stopped and held out a hand expectantly. I sighed and smiled bitterly. You say that so shamelessly, as if you had nothing to hide. But tell me, what were you doing with a gun anyhow? She'd been concealing it earlier at Aroma, but it was obvious when I bumped into her. Which was why I picked her pocket without a second thought. Because no one other than military personnel was supposed to have access to firearms in this town. Your heart is as black as your hands are sticky, I see. I'm afraid you ought to be a lot more careful about concealing something like this. You're not getting it back. Sorry. It's for self-protection, I swear. Please give it back. Self-protection against whom, I wonder? This town is a peaceful place. Or at least it would be, if not for you and your friends. I brought the envelope out of my pocket. Lips went pale and then started clenching her teeth. Did you read it? Obviously. This is a member list of your terrorist cell, isn't it? Makes me wonder why you even bother. So much for secrecy. Although these are all code names, so there's no way I'd know who these people really are. Give it back. So you're either a secret agent investigating the bombings, or you're one of the terrorists. And I happen to know you're no secret agent. She clenched her teeth even harder then. It was a wonder that there weren't bits of enamel flying everywhere now. But for how hard she was grinding her teeth, her glare itself didn't have much or any bite. I wasn't afraid. And what will you do? I wonder. This isn't proof of anything after all. Besides, something isn't right here. There's no way you'd just leave this lying at Aroma, and yet you did. What? Wait, that's... Which means that it was intentional, or that you're stupid beyond salvation. No! Is it Rook? Clever of you. So you played dumb in front of La and yet you knew all along. No, actually I had no intention of hiding my cards. Besides, La knows a lot more than she lets on. You'd be surprised. In any case, I'll be holding on to this. And your gun, too. You're free to do whatever you want, of course, but just remember, so am I. And I won't hesitate to if need be. I put the envelope back in my pocket and walked away. Lip stood there for a long time. She didn't look like she really grasped what had just happened. The last I saw of her, she was trudging towards the trolley station in darkness. And of course, a scene is going to end. Oh, good. Things were quiet for a time. The days went on without fuss. La went on enjoying everything she could. I went on wondering what kind of use I was as a guide. There were no news of bombings or of terrorist groups or of death. No news of Lips either. She'd stopped coming to Aroma altogether. Rook was make it that insanely unhappy about that last bit. The next time I bumped into her was almost a week afterwards in broad daylight. We'd finished eating lunch at Aroma as per usual and were wandering around the area when La found a bookstore. Now, La loved books. She read them voraciously, no matter what genre they were. Short fiction, non-fiction, horror, romance, science fiction, fantasy, she devoured them all. Speaking of which, I'd not taken her to the library yet. I promised her I'd do so some time ago, but then a lot, for instance the bombings in Lips, happened. Which was why it had totally slipped my mind up until now. To be honest, I kind of felt guilty about that. La, if you find a book you want to read, come and get me. I'll be waiting over there on that bench. La nodded with a smile and rushed into the bookstore. Such a simple thing made her so happy. Made me wish I'd figured that out about her a lot sooner. Then again, this was the kind of thing that I never noticed until it was too late. I looked around the area. It was largely deserted. Here and there, people went about their business. One of them was walking towards me. I looked closely. This was a face I knew. Then she was standing before me. I came looking for you after I heard from Rook that you'd gone out shopping. She asked me if the seat next to me was taken. I motioned her to it. She sat down. Listen to me. They know about the list. I don't think they know that you have it. But still, be careful. You haven't destroyed it, right? If you have, then I can't help you. No leverage, see? So I hope for your sake. Oh, speaking of which, I'd like my gun back, please. It's too late for any of that. She narrowed her eyes. Obviously, she thought I'd set a trap for her or something. No, it looks like she's defeated. I just waved her into silence. Then I motioned her to take a look around us. A good long look. You were followed. I stopped her from thrashing about too obviously, and then I sighed, deeply. It looks like you can't help me at all. I'm sorry. There's no point in getting angry at her at this point. And in any case, one of our mysterious observers was under the eaves of that building over there. But at that range, she probably couldn't make out a word of what we were saying. Oh well. Don't worry about it. I'll deal with this myself. You probably ought to go hide somewhere, though. This might get messy. What makes you think I'll do that? Give me my gun, please. I have no idea what you're planning on doing, but I'll tell you one thing, it won't work. Lips just clenched her teeth again for a time. Her name should be like Teeth, or something. It's all about teeth with her. It seemed like forever. Finally she nodded, stood, and left. And although they were trying to be inconspicuous, it was obvious that several people were tailing her. One of them, the man from before, stayed in the area. He was obviously focusing on me, so I gave him no reason for suspicion. I waited there for long, and soon enough she came running towards me with a heavy-looking bag in her hands. I found lots of books. They all look so fun. Makes me really happy. For a moment I forgot all of my troubles and smiled back at her. But she had already caught on that something was up. She looked up at me gravely. I stood up and we began walking down the street. Sure enough, we were being followed. Blackiris, was that Lips you were with? Yeah, it was. She seemed like she was in a real hurry. I see. She stopped and looked back for a second, the disappointment obvious on her face. It was really quite amusing to watch the man almost jump out of his skin, then duck into a store for cover. Oh, La, I have something to do, so would you mind waiting for me at Aroma? That's fine, but, I smiled ambivalently. I didn't want to say much more to her about what was going on at this point, so we headed on over to Aroma. Now, obviously, the people who were tailing me knew all about Aroma. They had to, given that they'd originally been after Lips. But Rook could probably take care of one guy easily, and then some. So after I deposited her inside, I walked back out. My shadow looked a little confused as to whether he should stay and observe La or follow me. Eventually, he chose to come after me. I lost him fairly easily, and as I made my way back through the back alleys of 6th Street. This old quarter of 6th was a maze of twisty passages, all alike. It was hard to find your way even with a map, if you didn't know the area. I wasn't sure that this would be enough, but sure enough, no sign of my follower. So he was even less intelligent than I expected. So I doubled back and started shadowing him. He found his way back to 6th Main Promenade by now. He walked toward the trolley station, and then went right past it. He was heading for 5th on foot. 5th Street was filled with residences. I, of course, happened to live in one of these when I wasn't on duty. The man looked to his left, his right, behind him. He was obviously spooked. Finally, he shrugged and walked into an old apartment complex. I found a hiding place and waited, but my shadow did not re-emerge. Instead, it was another man who stepped out into the daylight. A man whose face I knew. He headed down the street and into the trolley station. I stopped my pursuit at this point. There weren't many passengers on the trolley, even on heavy days, so I didn't want to risk discovery. Because if I knew who he was, the opposite had to be true as well. Law was nowhere to be found by the time I got back to Aroma. My heart sank. I turned to Rook and asked him what happened. Oh, yeah, that lady who owns Jackal came by a bit ago. Said you had something of hers that she needed double quick. So Law went with her to find you. Why? What's... I sprinted out of the place before Rook could even finish the sentence. Damn it all. It was too late now, but for crying out loud, I should have told Rook that something was up. Lips probably thought that her list and her gun were at our place on 8th Street. No wonder, so that's why she went after Law. I caught the next trolley to 8th. The train hadn't even stopped when I jumped off and started sprinting down the streets. When I got to the copse of trees, I noticed the profusion of footprints all around, big ones and little ones, Law's. This was just getting worse and worse. I checked to see that I had the gun on me, ready to whip it out at a moment's notice, and kicked open the door to our place. Whoa, he is mad. The house was completely silent. It had obviously been ransacked, but there wasn't a soul around anymore. No, actually, Lips was sitting motionlessly on the living room floor, although I was beginning to doubt that she had a soul. Lips, what did you do to her? I looked up slowly as if she looked up slowly as if her mind was swimming in mud. Then her eyes opened wide. She took my arm and refused to let it go. She was shaking. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I thought I'd lost them for sure, but... Great. She was going to have to calm down. Now. We were just wasting time here. Although I did have one crucial piece of evidence now. She had been followed to our place. That's why the terrorists knew to strike here. Sorry about that. I think I'm fine now. She let go of my arm, took a few big breaths, and began to explain what had happened. So I came to your place. I wanted to get my gun back from you at the very least. But the moment I got in the house, a couple of men from the group rushed me. 3, maybe 4. They took me down pretty quickly. La tried to help me, but... She was taken hostage, was she? Most likely. They'll probably demand the list in exchange for her. And, do you know where they are? I have no idea. They've been operating from an apartment on 5th, but they know that something's up now. If they're intelligent at all, they have moved to another safe house by now. Great. Now what? If I proceeded about this the wrong way, La was going to be in grave danger. But I couldn't just sit here and do nothing. I'm sorry. This all happened because I was sloppy, so I'll make things right. Somehow, I'll be fine. She said as she got up off the floor. She certainly didn't look fine. Her face was pale, and her legs were shaking a bit. I sighed, and I stopped her before she went out the door. I appreciate the sentiment, but you better stop. But if you fail, then you won't be the only one who dies. La will too. That's quite enough out of you. She looked like she was about to cry, out of frustration and anger. I surveyed the wreckage around the room. Poor La. All her tidy housework had gone to waste. Our assailants had obviously been very thorough in their search. But I have to do something. We have to save La. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. But Lips just shook her head violently. It's my fault that this all happened. Yes, that's true. But there's something else. She knew about me. She knew everything. And she tried to rescue me. So you told her about the group then? Yes. There wasn't any way I could avoid it. She made me say everything. Just what was it you'd taken from me? Just how dangerous dangerous it would be. And then she brought me to your place. They tried to take me hostage too, you see, but she assured them that she'd be sufficient. They believed her. Suddenly, a line from a book I'd once read flashed into my mind. Something about idiocy, claptrap, and hysterical folly. Roughly in that order. Well, next time, guys, we are gonna find La. Or at least I hope. Hopefully, Blackiris can be badass again. So, thanks for watching. See you next time.